Yes.
Yes.
So excited to be here. Anasa Troutman, welcome.
Yes.
Hello, it's me. I'm here. We made it.
I'm super excited to be with you. I just want to give you a little introduction to my people. Anasa and I met literally a week ago. Is that right?
Was it a whole week already?
Yes, it was 1 week ago. And we met through our mutual friend, Ra Goddess, the Incredible.
Who's been on your
The
show?
one and only.
And there were, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 of us in this little gathering. And we were definitely, I felt we were meeting to kind of have like a tete-a-tete, like, let's talk about what the fuck is happening in the world right now. And I just like let Ra offered to facilitate this conversation. I trust her completely to do this. So she had all of us check in. How you doing?
Yeah.
I think it was a super simple question, like, what's on your heart? And everyone, like 24 out of 25 people were like, man, it's like hard times. Hard. Anasa gets on. I am fantastic. I mean, I'm feeling good. And I was like, this woman, I want to know this woman. Immediately followed her on Instagram, asked her to be on the interview. I didn't do any further research before agreeing to do this.
Yeah.
It was such a full yes.
As was I. Thank you for having me. That is what you just described as my experience in the last 2.5 weeks. Everyone's like, oh, how are you doing in these difficult times? Is everything okay? And I'm like, hell yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Which times are you in?
Like, where are you watching on TV? Because you're watching the wrong thing, boo.
So we're going to go more into like actually what you do for a living and how you help people and stuff like that. But I want to start right there, Anasa. Like, how is it that why do you think your experience is so different from all these other people that you're in these rooms with, in these conversations with?
You know, it's so funny because I was just talking to my, I grew up with a group of, I'm like going to sound like we're in a cult. We were not in a cult. I promise we were not. But I grew up in my family, and our extended family was very nurturing culturally for us. Like, that's why my name is Anasa. My sister's name is Nandi. His name is Timba. We, our Taiwo and Swana. Like, we have all West African names. Our parents not being able to draw a direct connection to a tribal land or a homeland created this like cobbled together semblance of cultural belonging for us. And so we've been talking about Black liberation since the day before we were born. And the brilliance and beauty of Blackness is what was infused in us as children. So it was like, you are dope because you're Black. You are dope because you are a girl. We never got the work twice as hard to get half as much speech. Never. It was always, you can do whatever you want. You can be whatever you want. You can have whatever you want. And it wasn't like the other side, which is like, you just have to work. It wasn't that. It was just like, you get to be whoever you want because you were born, and that's enough. And so what I see when I turn on the TV or when I go outside and I see like literally a global uprising for the value of Black life, what I see is a reflection of what I've been taught from being a baby. Like, what y'all should have been doing this whole time. So I'm like, hell yeah, I'm excited. I've been waiting for all of y'all to figure out what was going on. Like, yes, it's hard, but we've been suffering for literally 500 years here, right? Between indigenous genocide and enslaved Africans, we've been suffering 500 years. So like, yeah, I know it feels real crappy to you right now, but for me, I'm celebrating because finally there's a kind of empathy that allows us to have a transformative moment. And that is exciting as hell to me. Oh, okay, just
So
like, woo! Yes!
Yeah.
Be confused. I'm like, yes, I'm here for all of it. I'm all of it.
Did you notice a difference growing up? You said your upbringing was infused with all of this positive mindset. Did you see a difference between you and other kids around you?
That's so interesting. I mean, the thing that is interesting in your question is that my house was the house that every kid wanted to be at.
Ah,
Because my house was the house that was open. It was the house that was nurturing. It was the house that was like records and books and artwork, and it was the house of community. And I think because my parents were professional, because my parents went back to school when I was 2 years old. So my father became a physician and my mother became an attorney. So like on one side, we were these weird, like Afrocentric, like, I remember I remember my father standing on the steps one day in a dashiki saying, "I will never wear a suit. That's a white man's uniform." Like, I swear to God, like out of a movie. And he was a physician and my mom was an attorney. We lived in the suburbs in a split level 3-story house with a giant backyard. And so like on one hand, there were like these complete and utter revolutionaries who made us do book reports about Black history on the summertime. And on the other hand, there were like respected professional community leaders. And so like where you would normally see families like ours and people would be like, oh, that's the weird family, that's the weird Black family. I never thought about this before, but that we didn't have that because it was a Black doctor and a Black lawyer married to each other in the 80s. So we was like the legit Huxtable. So people pay even more attention to the lifestyle. And then it was like not just in our house. It was like my father started a private practice and he was like having 20 Black people meditating in our living room at night. And it was like,
what a fortune.
My mother was worked for the state. So she was a deputy attorney general and she was like doing work for people. Like they weren't like, we're going to get these degrees and make this money. They were like, we're going to get these degrees and serve these people. And so there was an entry point, an unusual entry point for people because they were Black professionals at a time where like it was not popular, but it wasn't prevalent to have that kind of level of professionalism in one house. But it was like people walked through the respectability door and then walked into African culture when they got inside the house. And so it was a unique way to grow up. I didn't know it was unique for a long time, but now I'm like, I was talking to my godbrother today and he was like, we're the last of a dying breed. It's like there's not I don't know any other two people who had the experience that he and I had growing up together. I just don't.
Where were you? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Montclair, New Jersey. I was born in Harlem, and we lived in Charleston for a while, but the bulk of my childhood is in Montclair, New Jersey.
Wow.
Go Bulldogs.
That's amazing.
Sri, what is it like when you hear Anasa describe her childhood?
Well, it's reminding me that I went to an elementary school where I was forced to learn about Black culture, and this is something. Yeah, there's something similar in what you shared, in the area that I'm only realizing the power of that just recently. Like like Madam C.J. Walker, there's this new Netflix show, and I saw the name and I'm like, I know that name, and it's so great to like know.
Yeah.
And it's all just because I went to a school where they were like, okay, you got to know this person, you got to know this person, you got to know this person. These are the people that did epic things that had your same skin color. You should know it. And at the time, I didn't really, I wasn't fully into it. I was just like, okay, this is something that I just, I'm being made to learn. And so I didn't fully value it at the time, and now it's like coming full circle. I'm experiencing that full value because now I get to participate in the conversation in a certain kind of way.
Yeah, I think for what it did for us was just give us a different footing to stand on as we developed into adults, because most popular culture tells Black kids that they don't have any value.
Yes.
But our parents really very carefully curated the culture that we took in, like the art product, the film, TV, music, books. I never, ever had a white doll. Never, not one. One. My mom
was the same
not
way.
in my house.
Yep. It's tripping me out right now. I'm like, oh yeah, my mom did the same thing.
Books. If somebody bought me, I remember having a birthday party and having like someone buy a book where there was like white kids in the book, and my mother legit took crayons and colored all the kids brown in the book so that I always saw myself everywhere I went. I always saw myself. And it always gave me like the confidence to know that like no matter what you say. I have a TED talk about this. I tell the story of how the first time I was called the N-word, I was 7 years old, just by myself on the beach, and this man in the truck just drove by and yelled the word out to me. And even in moments like that, like my first thought was like, what a fool. Like, does he not know?
It's so healthy. It's such a beautiful response. I just like want to transmit that exact response into all bodies everywhere. What a beautiful thing.
It's a big difference. And I'm not saying I haven't had issues with confidence or things like that in my life, because I certainly have. But it's my issues have never been around like my value as a human because of my gender or my race. Never for a second. Never for a second.
Amen.
Amen. It's a gift. It's like a humongous gift that my parents gave me, and all my uncles and aunties. It was a tremendous gift that I really want for every person to have.
Beautiful prayer.
I feel like I hear an accent there. Is there an accent?
I mean, I moved to the South when I was 18 to go to college. I grew up in Jersey, like I'm Jersey for real. Okay. Yeah. New York City, for real, all of that. But I have lived more than half my life in the South. And all my roots are in the South. My mother is a Southern woman. My mother grew up on a dirt road in Pamlico County, South Carolina. Like, you know, I would like to consider myself a Southern woman, even though I was born outside of the South. But every time I try to leave, I always have to come back because I'm like, I don't feel good. I lived in LA for 3 years, and I was like, I can't do this. I loved LA. I lived 3 blocks from the beach. I was like, I've always wanted to live, and I was like, I can't stay. I can't stay. So, yes, you definitely hear an accent.
Okay, beautiful.
It comes out at different times. If it was my sister, you would think I was in Jersey right now.
Wow. But I thought it was West Indian for some reason. I thought it was West Indian, but it's down south.
It's Southern. I mean, American South, Global South, it's all the same thing if you ask me.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Anasa, tell us a little bit about how you help people. What are you doing with your time?
Oh, that's such a strange question. How do you help people?
What's your mastery?
I thought I have a couple of them. I have like a very comfortable mastery around cultural strategy is really my thing. What I'm learning is that my real mastery is around storytelling, which has been a journey for me because the place where I have not had confidence is in myself as a creative. And so I have had to learn that I actually am a storyteller, and this identity that I crafted for myself around cultural strategist was really my attempt to get as close to the art as I could without having to call myself an artist. So which on one hand really worked out because I have a very sophisticated, very impactful cultural strategy model that I developed with my own 2 hands. And so now that I'm like learning how just to step out front and be the storyteller that I am, in my back pocket, I have this really powerful strategy to be able to leverage those stories for social impact. And so it's exciting. It's one of those things where you're like, I had this defense mechanism. It served me so well, and now I don't need it anymore. It's like that total thing. So I think I would say that those 2 things. I think my most natural form of mastery is love. I think that is like my natural superpower. I pride myself on being a person who makes people feel like somebody loves them, no matter what. Like I could be dogging you out, tearing you up to filth, like telling you all the terrible things about yourself, and you're gonna know it's because I love you, not because I'm mad. And so that's like my favorite thing about myself is that when people come around me, they know somebody loves them. But what I do from a utilitarian standpoint, and like how do I help people and how do I really work to transform the world, is through storytelling.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Oh, I like y'all. You guys, oh, I'm so happy that came on here. You guys feel really fantastic. I love this.
I love that. Well, we're on the same page because we also see loving as a profession.
For real though.
Yeah.
For real. It's a rare skill that not everybody has.
Mm.
It's a difficult thing to do, to love.
Yes. Yeah.
Really hard. People act like love is all like juicy and squishy and blah, blah, but it's not. It's hard as hell.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, we got to do it.
Can you tell us a story about that, just to give us a little storytelling and go a little deeper in this? Because I think that actually, as we're talking about love,
Yeah.
like this is a moment for you to do some teaching, some preaching, some transmission giving, because I don't know that it's obvious to everyone what we're talking about when you talk about love being hard.
Yeah.
Why is it hard?
I mean, it's hard. Well, I mean, I believe that the purpose of love is to keep people in relationship when things get hard. Like love is not for any. That's the only reason why. It's like the functionality of love is like when y'all know when you guys have a fight and you're like, oh, the thing that makes you keep going is the fact that you love each other. And it's like, yeah, I know we had a fight. Yeah, I know he did whatever or she did whatever, but we love each other, so who cares, really? And I used to talk about love all the time. I'll be like, we have to love each other. And one day somebody said to me, okay, I get it. We have to love each other. Now, what does that mean? And I was like, oh, I don't actually know how to talk about it. Mm-hmm. And so I spent a year writing about love every day. I just was like, every day I would go in my journal. I would be like, what's today's meditation on love? And what I came out with at the end of the year was a definition for myself about what love was. I don't always remember all the words, but it's something like loving someone is honoring your connection to them in word and deed. There you go. I said it. Now the trick is.
Wait, what was that? Can you say that one more time?
Loving is honoring your connection to another in word and deed. So that could be like another person. It could be another bunny rabbit. It could be a tree. It could be the ocean. It could be the cosmos, like whatever it is. But the trick is that presupposes that you believe that we're all connected. Because if you don't believe that we're connected, then it allows you to do things to people that can range from spitting on someone to committing genocide. Because that's how you get to be violent, when you dismiss your connection to another being. But when you know, like when you're like, no matter what, we are all connected. And then you say, like, to love someone, I need to honor that connection in word and deed. Then the question becomes like, what is your actual connection and what does it look like to honor that connection? So like, what does it mean to love someone who you're married to is different than what does it mean to love someone who is a stranger, who is a woman on the shores of a beach in India who you will never meet? How do you love her knowing that you're connected to her? You will never meet her. You'll never see her face. You'll never hold her children's hand. But how do you love her? And then how do you love someone who's harmed you? How do you love someone who's harmed you in your interpersonal life, and someone who has harmed you generationally? Like, how do you love someone like that? No names necessary, right?
Yeah.
And the biggest question that I always have to ask myself is like, what does that mean for your relationship with yourself? Like, what is your actual connection to yourself, and how do you actively love yourself? And so to me, this idea of love is like, it's so complex because there's so many different answers, and like none of it's easy. None of it's easy. Being an honorable person, number one, is not easy at all. Like, you just got to always be present and paying attention and focused. But like, to have to be honorable with someone else and your connection to that person means that you always have to be vigilant, and you have to be compassionate, and you have to be vulnerable. You have to be all the things that we are taught not to be in our culture. So if we grew up a certain way, maybe loving would be more easy. But the way we are taught, at least in America, is like, mind your business, right?
Yeah.
Don't share the secrets.
Yeah.
Don't let them see you sweat.
Mm.
Don't like all the things that we're taught are literally the opposite of loving.
Yeah.
Literally the opposite of loving. And so in order for us to become loving people, we first have to unlearn all the things that keep us behind our gate.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And then you have to like lean into, as an adult with a spiritual belief system, like, do I actually believe that we're all connected? Do I actually believe that? Because if you don't, you're screwed from the gate. Right.
Yeah.
Just
That's
are.
like the basic understanding. Yeah.
Like, is water wet? Well, then you know what's going to happen when you get in the ocean. Well, like, if you don't feel connected to other people, like if you don't cultivate who you are as a spiritual being and energize that connection that you have. I always think about Octavia Butler in the Pattern Master series, and I know that Dora was a misunderstood guy, but like, if you like, I always think about that image of him with these threads to all of humanity, and it's like we all have those threads all over our being that's connected to literally every being that ever existed and ever will exist. Like, if you can learn how to imagine that that is true, then it makes the path to learning how to love a lot easier. And it makes the like puzzle to unlock it a lot easier. And I also want to say that loving someone and being in a relationship with someone is two different things. And you can learn how to love people and also know that you have to create a boundary to protect yourself from them. But it doesn't mean that you get to be violent with them. It means you have to protect yourself from their violence, maybe, but you don't get to do that in a space that, which is also different than holding people accountable and being honest and saying the thing that needs to be said. Y'all know all this. Y'all know.
No, but this is so satisfying. I really feel like I believe you have the answers to every question that people are asking right now. I 100%. Do. I welcome y'all that are watching live. If you've got questions for Anasa, go ahead and type them in. We'll make sure that we ask. But Sri, don't you feel that? Like, she's just like, before the question has even arisen,
she knows what's up. She's got the basic truths that everything else rests on.
I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
From that space, you can just get messy. Like from the understanding that we are all equal, from the understanding that love is the main is the main goal here. Then you can kind of live from that space and just get messy with it. Just get even with these conversations, like especially with like Black Lives Matter. For me, it's a messy conversation, and how do I feel safe in that is just knowing that equality, knowing that love is my main focus. So I love that. And I agree with you that's
I agree with you too. Yeah. Because it's just it's like that. And the thing that makes that all that what I said so important is because it is going to get messy. There's no question about whether or not the mess is going to show up because we're human and we don't know everything and we don't know everybody and we're scared and we have triggers and all that stuff. So it's going to be messy. And if you can just stand in love and know that love doesn't mean that you have to be agreeable, right? That you can
feel good.
Or feel good. Thank you. Or feel good, Jesse. Love does not mean you are going to feel good. It does not mean that. That you're going to feel love, which sometimes feels like anguish. Right? You want to run away, you want to fight and yell and scream, but you're like, but I love them.
Yeah. I like to say, like, we fall in love with the part of yourself that is in anguish, or fall in love with the part of yourself that's frustrated. So you keep the love going, and you don't like block off emotions. You're able to welcome it all in, and stay in love, and at the same time honor frustration, honor anger, honor sadness.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that's powerful about understanding love as an action is, this is going to sound really corny, but when I was a kid, I used to watch Oprah every day. Like, I had two main squeezes. They were Oprah and Martha Stewart, and I watched Oprah every day, which means I got to see like a lot of Dr. Phil, which is a whole other conversation because he used to show up once a month. So the one thing that I learned two things from Dr. Phil. One is like how to mirror communications. It's very helpful when you're in an argument to just be like, this is what I think you said. And they can be like, I didn't say that. And you can be like, well, tell me what you said until you get it right. That's the first thing. The second thing I learned is if you want to be in a space of love with someone, then you act loving towards them. So like when you're with your mate and you're fighting, and you're like, I just don't Then you're like, if you want to feel love, do something that is loving. Like, how would you behave with this person if you weren't mad as hell at them? And so what I'm learning is in these conversations, like the thing for me, like today, I was triggered today. Oh, I was on a phone call with these people. And the one
Can you give us a little context?
Yeah, so I was on a call. How can I say without saying? So I have been doing a lot of work in like kind of the economic impact investing, like thinking about new economy and how we how we match this conversation about a social transformation with an economic one, and like building an economy of repair that really acknowledges all the things that have happened in the country and what needs to happen for us to move forward with thriving and joy and all that. And so I'm a part of a couple of communities of people who are thinking about maybe not a repair economy, but who are at least thinking about impact investing. That's what they call it.
Okay.
Which I find sometimes out of alignment with my values, but whatever, you get to do your own thing. So I was on a call with them today. It was like a really, a call where it was actually really beautiful because it was space for everyone just to show up and be like, this is how I feel right now. This is where I am and this is what I need. And I really love that because I actually feel like it's important for all of us to be able to say whatever we feel, right? In a space of safety, right? Even if it's completely ridiculous what you have to say. So the one man was talking about how he didn't understand why people have burned down the Wendy's in Atlanta. Like, I don't understand. Why would they burn down the Wendy's? And I was like, but then the man who went after him said, I mean, the real problem in Atlanta was that the police officers were not physically fit. Because if they were physically fit, they would have just been able to restrain that man without having to escalate it to using firearms. And I'm like, so you think that the problem is that we need to require officers to pass a physical fit test? That's what you think is happening. And I had to I was so triggered. I almost got off the call. I almost was like, I'm out and I'm never coming back to this again. Like this is no longer my community. Goodbye. And I had to really sit with myself and say, like, how is that who you want to be? Like, is that how you want to show up? It's just by being like, bump y'all and hanging up and being mad for the rest of the day. What does love look like right now? And I was like, well, love for myself looks like having my say, because I had a lot to say. And I was like, you don't need to sit around holding this for the rest of the day. So number one, we're going to get rid of this. Number two, what does it look like to love these people in this circle? And it was like, it looks like saying what's true for you and allowing them to be in your heart and allowing them to be able to hear what's true for you and how harmful they're being by saying this dumb shit on the internet phone call. Like, that is the dumbest thing. Seriously, you want them to be, we need to require people to be physically fit to be in the police force? That's gonna stop? Okay. And I had to say it in a way that was like calling people in, not calling people out. Because
little mic drop there.
I love that. Calling people in, calling people out. It's
so hard. It's so hard.
Mastering of love right there.
Right? It's like, and I don't have that, like, in a moment like this, I don't have the expectation for everyone to have that skill. But I literally have spent years and years and years cultivating the skill of love and loving communication. And so it's my responsibility to step in those moments and be able to be that person when other people can't or shouldn't.
How did you do it? Like, how did you call them in?
Well, so I said, hi. I introduced myself first because I don't know a lot of them because it's a new community for me. And I said, hi, my name is.
How many people are we talking? Like 2 or 70?
No, there was probably like 30 people on the call.
Okay.
And I was like, a lot of y'all don't know me. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Anasa. I live in Memphis. I'm new to this community. I went to my first one of these meetings last year, and I have to be honest that I left that meeting feeling, I think I said angry and disappointed, which was true. And I said, I had decided not to be a part of this community, and I decided I should keep showing up because I need to be a part of it in order to help it transform. But today I'm feeling the same sadness and disappointment and anger I felt when I was at the meeting. And I felt like I was going to hang up and just never come back. But what I realized is that actually my voice is needed in this space. And I've heard multiple people say multiple things that are incredibly hurtful to me in my community. And if you all are really interested in having a real conversation about where we are and where we need to go, me and a whole bunch of other Black folks are leading in this space around repair economy. And I'm happy to introduce you to whoever you need to talk to be able to be in a real conversation. But this conversation we're having is harmful and not helpful at all. And then, you know what happened? That chat started blowing up. I got like 5 or 6 private messages. Thank you so much for saying that. Thank you for your courage. Can I please have your number? Can we please talk? Please, what do you mean that you were hurt by what he said? What did you hear that was hurtful? You were uncomfortable at the conference. What can we do to make it like all of that? All of that. And if I had just shut down and bounced, them people would have just been right where they were, right, right before I said what I said. And again, it's not everybody's responsibility. It's a heavy lift to have to be that for people who are hurting you. It's a heavy lift. And so I'm not saying that that's what we should all be doing. But again, that's a role that I took on when I decided I wanted to embody love all the time. I made a conscious decision to do that. And I made a conscious decision knowing who I was raised to be in a world that is racist, classist, sexist, and all the other things, right? And so it wasn't like I was like, I'm going to be loved, and we're going to be Care Bears all together, everybody in the world, and we're going to have unicorns and rainbows all the time. It was like, I'm going to be loved in a world that is kind of fucked. That's just what I'm going to do. And this is, you know, where we are. We out here. Because now it's going down. The portal is open, and we got to hold it open for people who want to jump through. And that ain't gonna be everybody. Some people like are looking at the portal and like, I really want to jump through.
Yeah, do I want to? They're like,
right.
like double dutch, like they're at the ropes, like.
And some people like are trying to jump through, but the thing that they're carrying is so big and they can't fit. It's like, you are welcome in this portal, but you got to take that thing off. Like, you can't get through this door and you holding that thing, that big, giant, like ignorant ass thing you insist on holding on to. Like, you got to put that down, or you're going to be on this side of the door when it closes. I'm not going to be over here.
I love it, because this is what we're seeing right now. Is we're seeing like some closing of the door, COVID came through, the door kind of closed a little bit. We got to see a little juxtaposition of that energy that you're talking about. And I feel like, with everything that's happening today with Black Lives, that was another moment where it's like, okay, you paying attention? Like these moments where the door gets closed, so you can see what it feels like for the door not to be open, and you see how that feels, Yeah.
I see it, the way I see it is a total opposite. I feel like the current presidential administration opened the door halfway. I feel like it cracked it, like a little, like, oh, what is this? What? Maybe might be racism. Maybe
quite possibly
a little light, maybe. But he doesn't mean it, and it's really as long as my economics don't shift, and it's something I'm willing to deal with. And I think like what COVID did was like open the door like some more. So it's like, oh snap, Black people are dying at an alarming rate. Oh snap, Indigenous people are dying at a higher rate. What is that? Why? Oh snap, everybody's getting $1,200. Well, that's not enough money. How did they come up with that? Well, that is calculated based on minimum wage. So what you're doing is complaining about the paycheck that some people get all the time. Like your emergency paycheck is what people have been living off of their whole life. So now you have to deal with race, you have to deal with economics, right? And then what George Floyd's murder did was kick the door off the hinges.
Yes.
Because now what we're doing is we're seeing the militarization of America and like the truth of who we actually are. Like you can't get PPE for a nurse, but the police have full legit head to toe armor tanks in regular cities. But I can't get no mask and I'm saving people's lives every day. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. And so what is happening right now is like the lid has been blown off. Everything is exposed. And like the problem has been that all this time people have been like holding the door closed, like, oh no, there's no racism on the other side of this door. No, ignore noise, right? And now there is no door. There's no door on the thing. You're like looking at this gaping hole in the wall at this point, and you're like, everyone's freaking out. Like, wait, what is that? Hi, welcome to our reality. Welcome to a country whose DNA is steeped in the murder, the rape, the stealing, the genocide, the enslavement. Like that's who we are. Like we are all living in a slave economy. We're all living under a police state that was built on the DNA of the slave catchers. We're all living in a place where we don't get to rest and take care of ourselves and love each other. We're all suffering from that. And so, yes, if you want the divine feminine to rise, you have to stop racism, stop patriarchy, all them things. Like they can't coexist. They can't coexist. So get it together. It's time. It's time. And I never thought I would see it, but here we go.
We're here.
Here we fucking go.
Here we go. Yeah. And the truth is, like, we have to give Barack Obama some of that door opening because he is the person who unlocked the door. Like, he unlocked the door because, like, we watched white people be their most awful selves during his administration. And some of us were like, can you see this racism all over the place? Oh, that lady, that image of that lady on the tarmac in his face. Oh, I will never forget that. I will never forget that because she would not have ever done that to a white man. Never. Oh, she's the original Karen for me. I will never get that lady's face out of my mind. And for people to start to be like, whoa, like, we're so excited we have a black president and look how he's being treated. And then to see the backlash that was like as American as Barack Obama is, Donald Trump is as American. Like we all have him in us. And our mistake that we're making is like pointing at him and vilifying him and acting like he's an enigma. And he's not. He's like, who do you think we like? Who do you think we are? Like we're a country that was built on imperialism. Who like do you think that we don't have Donald Trump in our cultural DNA as Americans? Get out of here. Get out of here. Oh, y'all done riled me up. I need some water.
I really want to acknowledge that I feel like it's a different portal, but we're opening a portal every time we come here. And you're taking the light, taking the space, and like amplifying this message. It's very, very important. I think you're just like you're answering everyone's question before they've even asked it. I really feel like everything you're saying is medicine for people who are listening.
Ancestors, honey, I'm just opening my mouth and they saying whatever they got to say.
There's a piece that feels really rich. This piece of love mastery and everything you're bringing forth in that love mastery. And the hardness of it, the cultivation of it, actually the mastery, and kind of leaning into moments where it seems impossible to love. It seems impossible to see your equality in another person. One of those moments, of course, is when George Floyd was killed. And Jesse and I, we had this conversation where we were like, okay, how do we love this atmosphere? It's a big one because I'm angry. I'm sad, I'm frustrated. And even in the sense of just watching the video, watching it happen and doing that exercise, like, okay, what is love here? Watching someone's life being taken before my eyes again, this is happening again. And it's just such a beautiful space to be able to not only put ourselves in George Floyd's shoes, I can't breathe. That's the mantra that people are chanting. And that's in a way allowing all of us to put ourselves in his shoes to really feel like, what does that mean? And then at the same time, how many people have tried to put themselves in the shoes of that police officer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's just like, whoa, I'm even
Nobody wants to do that.
nervous saying it live, you know. Nobody wants to kind of lean into it. But when you do that, you know, it's there's such a powerful messages that come out of that space that and so I'm curious about that, like to bring in that question, how does love fit?
I'm about to make you so mad. I was do y'all know the name Reverend James Lawson?
Mm-mm.
He actually lives in LA. He was the person that taught King about nonviolence. So he met King. He was 23 when they met. He had already traveled all over India and all over Africa and had learned from the masters of nonviolence. And he met King and he was like, I'm so happy to meet you, but I'm about to go to grad school. And King was like, you're actually not going to grad school. You're actually going to come to the South and teach everybody about nonviolence, and you're going to help this movement. And so he did it. He was like the progenitor of the work that that Bayard Rustin did, and like all that strategy work. And he was the chief strategist for the Sanitation Workers March of 1968, which is the march that had King in Memphis when he was murdered. So the building where all that work happened is called Historic Claiborne Temple, and my organization bought that building in December and had been doing a historic preservation project on that building. Saying all this to say that I got to sit with Reverend Lawson in April for like hours.
Wow!
And I asked him, because we were having the same conversation, right? And I'm like so excited because I'm like, I've never heard anyone else say this stuff back to me. This is amazing. Oh, and I asked him the question that you're asking me. I said, how do you love someone when they do you dirty? Like when you know it's a cop or the president or the whatever, like, and you know that they mean you harm. How do you love that person? And he looked me dead in my eye and said, well, that's the work, isn't it? And I was like, oh, you get out my church.
Yes.
Thing like that is the work. It's like the act of reaching for love for that cop with his knee on that man's neck is the work. And like understanding that loving him does not mean excusing him. It does not mean going easy on him. It does not mean any of that. It just means like he needs to be brought back into alignment with his own humanity, whatever that looks like. I'm not here to tell you that I know how to bring that man back into his humanity because he is so far from it. But what I do know is that instead of looking at him as someone who is evil, if I can look at him as somebody who is out of alignment with who he is as a spiritual being, then it allows me the grace to find a crack that I can love him in it, even though I'm angry, even though I'm sad, even though I want to go out and tear everything up, even though it makes me work twice as hard during the day, sleep half as much to be able to do all the things that we're doing to try to liberate the world. There's a friend of mine, his name is Jabron Rivera. He lives in Boston and he's a master facilitator. And he teaches us that the leader's role is to hold two things that seem to be disparate until they reconcile. And if you can learn how to hold like your incredible hate and disdain and your anger and your sadness and your sorrow and your anguish with the fact that this is a human being who is a light, who is out of alignment, who needs to be restoratively brought back to his own humanity. You hold both of those things at the same time, then you're getting somewhere. Now, I'm not telling you how to do it because I don't know. I struggle with it too. I was yelling at the TV the other day. I was yelling at my TV the other day, and I was like, everybody calm down in here.
TV's not a person. TV's not a person. Will not respond back.
I want to throw in something and connect some dots that I feel like I'm getting from both of you, as well as a lineage that's not here, which is this quote that one of my coaches, David Nagel, has like painted on his wall when he meets with clients. This is Leland van de Waal, white guy from a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
The degree to which a person can grow is directly proportional to the amount of truth she can accept about himself, herself, without running away.
Mm. Said that.
Yeah. And what I've been struck by is, like, I've been, kind of beat over the head with that principle for the last, like 4.5 years that I've been coaching seriously and working on mindset in this way.
Yeah.
And that is not, it's painted on a wall, makes it look like a fun quote card. That shit is hard, uncomfortable, brutal. Like, it is not comfortable to look at the truth of who we actually are. In our darkness, in our shadow, in our unconsciousness, in our meanness. And so you were, both of you, talking about this. I feel this principle. And then Sri, you brought up the cop, and I felt in a different way. Also what I'm learning from Ibram Kendi, because I'm reading his book, that, and what you just said, Anasa, about we're all connected. Like, if we are all connected, me and that cop are connected. And if he's capable of doing that, there is at least a part of me that not only is capable of doing it, but probably is doing it, even if it's only in my own mind.
You better work. Yes. That's
what is that part
right
like
there.
That to me, that's and then you put in what Sri just said, which is like, how do we love those parts of ourselves? So that's where I feel like I can go. I have lots of tools to do that and do that first. And then if I get through those and I still got more work to do, then great, I'll learn about that. But like, it feels to me like there's actually the trick to being an anti-racist is to be willing to do that work, to be willing to look at the truth of where I am racist, where I might, in some bizarre circumstance, actually be the one with my knee on George Floyd, and then like hunt for, aggressively search for the little micro moments where I do shit like that, that I don't understand I'm doing.
That's right.
And claim that shit, claim the part of me, not to like accept it, not to make it appropriate behavior, not to like brush it under the rug, but quite the opposite. It's like, okay, let's clean that shit out. Like, where'd that 2-year-old get stuck in its development?
Yeah.
I love that.
It's cool because it's like you either do that work or the universe will force you to see it at some point in time. And I think that's the beauty. That's what's happening right now. It's like we're being asked to be proactive with it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if you're not proactive, you're just going to get a quick smack by the way universal laws work, Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that what you just said is the thing that has people say stuff like, well, if they just required officers to be physically fit, we wouldn't have police brutality because they'd be able to restrain them properly. Because that man, like, is so unwilling to look at himself that he has to make something like that up to distract him from the truth of who he's being and who he would have to become to be a part of the transformation of the world, right? And I think that what you're saying is the thing, because we don't have control over other people. None of us can force that cop to be like, feel the, I don't even know what you call it, but like feel the extreme hellacious depth of anguish that he caused in his own soul by committing a murder like that, like he did, right? Like if you, I can't imagine the spots on his soul right now. I can't imagine. And I can't make him look at himself and see the evil that he's done. I can't make him do that. But what I can do is look at my own self and say, like, where does that man live in you? How do you excavate that? Bring it out to the light, transform it, and turn it into love. Right? I can't. That's all I can. It's all I can do is control the way I see myself and the way I exist in the world. And the truth is, there is plenty of finger pointing to go around. Because even if you like, I I was telling somebody just a month ago, I'm like, I've never been more aware of my privilege than I was during the pandemic, because I didn't have to leave my house to go to work. I didn't have to go to the grocery store. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to homeschool nobody. I didn't have to do anything I didn't want to. I have a really cute apartment with some cute wallpaper and the pictures of my ancestors up on the wall. They with me all the time. I look out the window over there and I look at the river, right? It's like trees and grass and river. I'm like, if I was ever going to be stuck in the house, this is the time to do it. And I'm like, I have class privilege, education privilege. Like I have, all these things, right? I'm a straight woman. I speak English in America. Like I have a lot of privilege. And unless and until I'm willing to look and see where I am harming people, then I can't have any expectation that our country is going to change. Because if I'm not willing to change, then how am I supposed to ask anybody else to? And the other thing is, like, I really want us to have a more nuanced and complex conversation about race in America, because we keep having this conversation about race as if it's not inextricably linked to class here. And we just keep ignoring the fact that, like, we're actually glossing over the whole point for race in the first place, which was to keep an economic system in place, right? Like when they decided to switch the system, like, first, we're going to just have slaves. We're going to have debtors who are slaves, people who are criminals who are going to be slaves, people like the dregs of society are going to be the people who are enslaved. And at some point, someone decided, forget all those other rules. We're now going to enslave people who have this skin tone. Like that was a literal ruling by one of the folks. Like a literal decision was made. Like no longer will we enslave based on these things. We will now enslave based on this, which allowed people to associate Blackness with people who don't have any worth or value. It was never about that. It was about how do we get free labor? How do we get people to do what we want? How do we build up all that? And it's like, yes, and now we all drink the Kool-Aid. So yes, we all know that racism is a thing and we have to deal with it. But if we don't deal with the fact, like if everybody was like, I love Black people, they are wonderful, and you still don't have nothing, and you still have poor education and all that stuff, like that, I don't care if you like me. I don't care. I don't. Like I like me. But what I don't want is for my kids' school system to be funded based on the tax base of my neighborhood if we're all poor, because my poor children deserve an education just like your wealthy children do. And you don't get to get more money and more schools and better computers because your parents have a big house. What? Who does that? That is the craziest thing I have ever heard in my life. And I'm like, who decided that that's how our school systems were going to get funded? That is the most... I just don't. I will never understand how that happened. Who let that happen? And why do we keep why haven't we been mad as hell and marching on the streets for that?
Totally.
Because that's crazy. We're literally telling a whole bunch of kids, like, you don't count. You can't have... My father, who I told y'all about before, my dad was in the 6th grade. He was like, oh, I forgot what he said. I want to be a whatever, he said. And the teacher was like, I don't think you can do that. You should consider being a mechanic. Like, what? What? Why are you saying that to any child? Why are you doing that? And like, that is the kind of stuff that gets me. It's like, when are we gonna stop trying to have a simple conversation about the most complex thing in the history of humankind? We're gonna stop acting like this is just some well, let's just learn how to like each other and be nice.
Yeah. I really appreciate you saying that. I actually, one of my favorite influencers during this time is a beautiful Black woman. She gets real pissed about the way that people, lots of things. It's so satisfying just to watch her rant. And one of the things that she said at one point was like, this is fucking simple. Stop saying it's complicated. And I was like, you're right. And like, I think it's just the feelings that are complicated. But it's like, it's helpful for me to hear you sort of articulate, extrapolate on the complexity also. I think there are simple aspects of this to the truth. It's simple that racism is real. Like, that's simple. What we do about it on the surface, like, also looks simple in some ways, but actually getting there, I think, is some of the most demanding work that there is for humankind to do.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why. That's like this one thing that's been so frustrating to me is like I got an email from somebody asked me, because of course like every white person I ever met is calling me asking me to show up in their thing, right? Which most of them I'm willing to do, because most of them are people who I'm in relationship with, and I'm like, yes, we've been having this conversation. I love you. I'm here for you. Let's do it. But some people are just like, oh yeah, you did a thing for me 3 years ago. Can you please show up and do right? And I'm like, I'm sorry, we're not in that kind of relationship. I don't want to do that labor with you, because here's my experience, and my experience says that you're actually not interested in Black liberation. So I'm gonna pass. And then they send you an email with a list of all the diversity and inclusion trainings they're doing. And I'm like, you think that this is liberation work, bro? Please. Please, like, no, you can't DNI this away. Whatever they call it, diversity. You can't DNI this away, right? Like your little racial sensitivity, your cultural whatever classes you're taking. Miss me with that. I can't help you with that.
There's so much love inside of this trio, and it's overflowing.
I know, people are freaking out.
Yeah, I want to overflow it into the comment section and just kind of give some love.
Where are the comments? Hi, everybody. I didn't even know. That's so funny. I'm like,
yes.
In the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are quoting you all over the place, Anasa.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, there's
Ryan,
some real juice here.
Good to see you, Ryan. Blessings. Mitravinda. Yes. Let's pull just a few of these. We have just a few moments left for this interview, but let's pull out something and answer some questions.
I would love to.
I mean, one of the I'm looking at Krishna's question. Shri, can you put that up?
Yes.
Can you all say something about how, quote, spiritual people misunderstand Black Lives Matter by taking the transcendental perspective? My spiritual white family has been condescending and offensive to my Black partner.
Yeah. I have a perfect answer. It's not even my answer. Maybe 2 weeks ago, me and Carrie Kelly and Nicole Cardoza did a series, an 8-night series called The Wellness of We. And on night 2, I was in conversation with India Ari and Sonia Renee Taylor.
That's right.
Sonia Renee Taylor was like, oh, that's spiritual bypass. Like, you are just using your spiritual practice to be able to circumvent the realities that we're living in. And that's not what spirituality is for. And so, like, that is one of the big critiques that I have of, like, and not just me, a lot of people have of, like, this wellness world, this, like, new age spiritual world, is that there are people who are like, I am one with everyone. But then, like, when they get off their mat or get off their meditation cushion, they're actually not only are they not one with everyone, but they're actually not even looking at everyone in their own truth to be able to have their own experience so that they can actually intervene in a way where we can all be ascendant, right?
It's like, if you have the condition that you got to have your eyes closed in order to meditate, it's going to be real hard to live in the world.
Yep. And if you are a person who has a depth of spiritual practice that has you have, like, a contemplative practice in that way, and it doesn't call you to action on behalf of people who are suffering, then your practice is off. Your practice is off. Your practice is off.
Yes.
You need to go deeper.
Yes.
In my opinion.
I love that.
Right. You can't control people, but you can inspire them, influence them.
Hopefully.
This isn't exactly a question, but I want to pull on Jess Farinos at 8:16. Yeah, Chris, welcome.
Blessings,
Hi, Chris. I saw that.
I'm so grateful to be here and hear this being spoken by you all. I was attacked online yesterday for proposing this concept to people who were being, quote, not so loving with someone they perceived to be an oppressor.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like there is a question in there and you already know what it is. So go for it.
I mean, first of all, I have two opposite answers. So the first answer is, I just finished telling y'all this is not an easy road to walk, right? So it's unreasonable for us to have an expectation that in a moment of violence, if we show up as love, that people are not going to be like, hell no, I'm not about to be love. I'm about to whatever, because that is a actual normal human reaction, and it's a reasonable human reaction, and there's nothing wrong with that reaction. It's not my reaction, but it's actually completely like totally makes sense.
It's just actually edited. It's cool because I feel like she just read my mind, but she just edited this a little bit more. So I want Sri for you to pull that up if you can, and then just look at it. Do you see it, Anasa?
No, not yet.
This one here is a lot.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot. But I think it's helpful to like understand a little bit what she experienced.
I can't see that. Hold on, I gotta put my glasses back.
I'm reading it out loud too.
Okay.
Was attacked online yesterday for bringing up the conversation about how we approach, quote, people who are the problem, end quote, in response to over harshness and immaturity displayed to someone who is perceived to be an oppressor. What I'm getting from this is like, how do we talk about this when somebody's being an ignorant racist in the moment? They felt that doing harm to harm is justified and solicited, and were angry with me for suggesting practicing a more civil approach. So it sounds like Jess was kind of like, hey, can we temper this and not be so aggressive? She says, I'm having trouble agreeing with that and would love to hear your perspective on this. I don't believe attacking is the solution.
Someone made this analogy to me once, and it's not all the way right, but it's like, you'll get the picture. It's like if you are being actively harmed, it's not the time to be like, hi, sir, could you please stop harming me? Like there is absolutely an appropriate time to fight. When there's impending danger, when there's impending harm, sometimes you have to be like, no, stop, get away, get off. And sometimes you got to pull out your sword and cut somebody. You might have maybe not, you don't want to cut him here, but it's like you might not have to nick the arm or something to be like, I mean it, back up off me. Right. And so I don't know the situation. So I don't know if that was a time when the person just needed to be shut down, but there are times when you need to shut people down. It doesn't mean be violent. It doesn't mean like be real, whatever. And also it's totally justified in this moment when tempers are flaring, when people's sores around race are totally activated. And if somebody's pouring salt on the wound, you can't be mad at someone who is activated. Like you should have as much. There's no should. I'm so sorry. And you should consider having as much compassion for the people who are being angry and attacking him as the person who you're trying to defend for being a racist dummy or whatever it is, right? So like you I find sometimes that the people who are like, hey, can we whatever, are not living in their full truth and not telling the whole truth. Like they're coddling, right? Like, it's not about being like, hey, can we just have a civil conversation? Because no, like sometimes this stuff is not about having civil conversations. It's about bringing the fire of the truth into the room and being like, you need to stop because what you're doing is whatever the thing is. It doesn't mean like, hey, sir, can we talk for a minute? No, like there is sometimes love is fiery. And sometimes love gets like, I was saying this the other day. I was on the podcast with Jeff Krasno from Commune, and I was like, we are giving birth to a new way of being, and birth is nasty. Birth is like the most beautiful thing in the world, but it's also bloody and gross and hard, and it hurts like hell, and all those things.
It takes too long.
It takes too long. Right? People like, I was in labor for 36 hours. Like, what? Are you serious? But like, you know,
sometimes it kills us.
And some people die in childbirth.
Oof.
Some people die in childbirth. And we have to understand that you can be loving and still be fierce, right? And I think that there's like this we've been taught to protect white men. We've been taught to protect them, and to treat them with as much, humility and respect as possible. And if somebody gets a little froggy because they're angry with somebody who is a white man who is doing something ridiculous, the instinct is for us to protect him. Like, oh, hey, can we just, whatever? But it's like, no. Like, if you have enough nerve to say that, what you just said, then you have enough nerve to stand me here, look in my face, and confront the fact that I'm telling you that what you just said was violent, it was hurtful, it's out of line, and you are part of the problem. And like, I don't have no problem with it. I mean, again, I wasn't there, so maybe the people were getting out of control. But like,
I think I'm appreciating what you're saying. I think it's connect. It goes back to the messy, and I feel like if we had another hour, I would want us to see how messy we could get together, because I think that we didn't really get too messy together tonight. If we're honest, like
the vibration high.
Yeah, which is also beautiful, and like.
Yes.
When we're trying to like get to the heart of what's going on here and have these conversations, I don't think it can be nice. It's not, the goal is not nice.
Well, I think that to put a pin on the answer to this question, it's like there's also a time and place for everything. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe even if the people who you were in relationship with were going too hard, the time to be like, hey, is not in the middle of that conversation. It's after the conversation when people are calm and you're like, hey, I just want to talk to you about the conversation that we had with Mr. So-and-so the other day. I want to talk about if there's another way to approach it. Because if in the moment, if you're like being his shield and protect, like,
no.
It's so important to express that anger, and especially for the spiritual community, because a lot of times expressing anger, it seemed like the bad thing. It's like, I'm spiritual, I shouldn't be angry, but that expression is the way back into the heart. It's back into the soul.
Yeah.
Every ancient spiritual tradition has a deity that is connected with war, with fire, with anger, with metal, right? Like there is divinity in anger, right? I'm not to be violent.
Divinity and anger.
When you have that fire coming out of you, then there is space on earth for anger. There is space in the spiritual realm for anger, right? Like it's just what it is. Like, and this whitewashing of like Western religion has taught us that in order to be spiritual, we have to, right? It's like, but it's not true. It's just not true. We are full, whole beings that have full, whole emotional experiences, and we don't need to live in any one of them forever. We need to experience the full range of who we are and learn how to channel that for the good of humanity. And sometimes people need to get yelled at.
Yep. Yep. Sometimes we need to get yelled at.
Sometimes
don't yell at me, but some people need to get yelled at.
Yeah.
Anasa, I feel so grateful as we hit the hour and 8-minute mark. I love that sacred 108 number. I just want to thank you.
Thank you for whatever you saw to invite me on in that little three minutes I was on that call acting crazy. I appreciate you seeing it and inviting me on. I really enjoyed my time with you.
I'm so grateful. I feel like I don't deserve your mercy, and I'm real grateful to have it anyway. You are the impression of increase. Yeah. You have, yeah. So how can we help? Let that be the last question. What can Sri and I or anyone who's watching this live or on the replay, what can we do to help you?
What a great question. I think that there are a couple of things. I have two main projects. One is Historic Claiborne Temple that I talked about earlier. We're in the middle.
Can you just say that a little more slowly?
Sure. Historic Claiborne Temple.
Okay, great.
Claiborne.org, Claiborne.org, Claiborne.org.
Great.
Is our website. And we are in the middle of a historic restoration of a sacred Black space that was really all about the intersection of race, class, and militarism, and how we build a world where everyone has access to joy, abundance, and life everlasting, because that's what we want for everybody.
Amen.
And so if you're interested in any of that work, you can go to that site. You can look at what we're doing. We're actually starting a community engagement process tomorrow that folks can participate in. If you go to the website, you can sign up, or you can donate to our building fund because we're raising $12 million. We're about to go into our second phase probably in September. So that's really exciting. And the other body of work that I have is called The Big We. It's really my own brand. I've been a storyteller and an entrepreneur for my whole adult life. It's weird that I'm running a nonprofit. That is so not me. I don't know how I got here, but I am. My real life is as an entrepreneur and a producer and a cultural strategist. And you can go on wethebigwe.com, and we have a podcast. We have the content from the Wellness of We up there. There's some information about the holiday I invented called Family Fantasy Extravaganza for people who don't want to celebrate Thanksgiving anymore. There's just all kind of fun stuff on the Big We. And we just started a community called the Weverse. So people can actually join. We literally put it up last night. I didn't even tell anybody. This is the first time I'm talking about it publicly, but we're going to be having groups like healing for Black folks, healing circles for white folks, all kinds of wonderful things are going to happen in the Weverse. And we just started our season 3 I think our season 3 episode 1 went up today. So there's lots of content and lots of juicy stuff. Follow me on Instagram, all the places, and I'll let you know what I need. But y'all can pray. So
good.
You want to help me, pray for me. How about that? Yeah, and pray for all of you.
Yes. Anasa, this is going to be the beginning, I believe, of a long relationship.
I certainly hope so.
Super, super grateful. We'll put those links into the show notes when we post this more officially, and everybody who's here live, please spread the word. I think that this is one of the most valuable interviews we've done on this subject so far. I would really like for everyone to see it.
Thank you.
So if you're feeling it, share it. Send it to your family. Send it to your friends. Post it on your page. Follow Anasa. Give her love to all these projects that she's working on. And
I'll tell you one more thing that I think would be helpful.
Absolutely.
I just want to serve people right now in this moment where people are confused and don't know what to do. I would encourage folks to watch my TED Talk and story, and then for people who need a 101 into this conversation, I think that TED Talk is a really good entry point for people. So that's what I will offer to people.
Great.
How I can be helpful.
Lord, and you are beautiful in this TED Talk.
Woof. Thank you. All
right, great. So if you want to find that right now, Anasa Troutman TED Talk, you will find it immediately. There's no competition, and we'll put that in the show notes as well.
Thank y'all so much. It was good to meet you, Sri.
Thank you so much, Anasa. What a blessing.
And thank y'all for watching live and being so engaged and asking such good questions and sharing so much of your love.
Yes, indeed. Our next conversation is Friday. Right? Friday, 7:30.
Yeah.
On it. Okay. All right. See you.
Beautiful. Love y'all.
Blessings and love.